I want to thank everybody for showing up today. This is an important time. Our founding fathers put their lives on the line to form this country. If they had lost that revolution, they would have been hung. They would have been murdered. They would have been killed by government. So they had everything riding on the line. There was no joke. This was, you lose, you're going to die, no doubt. England would not have tolerated it. And at this stage in history, we cannot afford to let what they put their lives on the line for, the freedoms that have been handed down to all of us over the years, we cannot let them take that away from us. We cannot do that. They gave it to us. We need to be able to pass on freedom and liberty and the right to defend yourself and the right to defend yourself from a tyrannical government on down the line to the future generations, so that the bright light, the shining light of this country, the really brightest light in the world, doesn't go out, because that's the ultimate goal. As I've said many times, if you think that gun control is about crime, you've drank the Kool-Aid. It's not about crime. Crime is the excuse. We hear the excuse. Oh, we got to do something because of all the murders and stuff. Well, anytime they say that in Richmond, I know it's going to be in one of three places. It's not all over the place. The murders are very located, very well situated in certain areas. No, it's not about that. The goal is civilian disarmament. And when you think about what they're doing and you go, well, that's a really stupid bill. Why would that? Doesn't make any sense. When you back up and think about it in terms of civilian disarmament, then suddenly these bills start to make sense, where they're pulling a little bit of your rights here, a little bit here. They're disqualifying more and more people from being able to carry guns for one reason or another. Red flag laws, all kinds of stuff. It's all part of a mosaic, and the goal is to disarm us, and we cannot let that happen. So I appreciate you coming out and being patriots and standing up for somebody that didn't show up. Now, some couldn't make it here today, but we're holding it up, and we're carrying the water for a lot of people. But so be it. When the country was formed, that's what happened. It wasn't everybody out here wasn't fighting against England. A third of the people were all for England, and some were just okay with what they had. It was a small percentage that said, no, we want liberty, and God bless them for doing that. So we have a series of speakers to talk to you on various subjects. The first one I'm going to have up is Delegate Zare. Delegate Zare has put in 4 pro-gun bills this year to protect our rights. And I'm going to let him talk a little bit about that, because he's got to go back in the building and do his job. So I appreciate him having some time to address you. Delegate Zare.
Thank you, Phil, and thank you all for being out here. Welcome to Richmond. I know the welcome that you've received from some of my colleagues may not have been quite as enthusiastic or quite as warm, but know that you are welcome here in Richmond. And the reason that welcome may not be quite as warm from others is because of the message that you bring. It is not because of you intrinsically. It is because you are here. You're standing for limited government. You're standing to say our Second Amendment, our Constitution matters. And no, just because you're an elected official doesn't mean you can trample on that, doesn't mean that you can undo it. And we are here to protect our Constitution, to protect our rights, to protect our civil liberties. How many of you, and I know that as I'm looking around this group, I'm imagining there have got to be people coming from quite a distance. Has anybody come from, let's say, the Eastern Shore? Do we have any Eastern Shore folks here? All right. Anybody out from the Southwest, Bath County or Washington County or any place like that? It was about 2 weeks ago. I was in a meeting of patriots in the county, one of the counties that I represent. I was in Bedford, and they told me, Eric, we're going to be there on VCDL Day, but it means getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to make it. And so thank you. Thank you to every one of you who came out. I know this is costing you to be here, but your presence here is a testimony to what we as Americans have, and that we're not going to take our liberties for granted. We are not going to sit by and just let them be eroded. The cost that you paid to be here today was significant for you, and I thank you for it. The testimony that you're bringing just by being here is not limited to Virginians. And I know as we look around, we're mostly Virginians here. But this morning, for example, I was talking with some journalists from Germany. The rest of the world is watching. The rest of the world is curious. They recognize, America, you not only gained your freedom, but you've held on to it this long. We have liberties like nowhere else in the world. People want to come here. How is that possible? It's because of folks like you standing up, letting your voices be heard, making the sacrifice to be here. And so welcome to Richmond. Continue what you're doing, continue to stand, and continue to fight for our Second Amendment, for your civil liberties. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Delegate Zaire. One of the things that's important is this battle isn't just in Virginia, but Virginia is, of course, a key state. Our country really started here. And again, liberty started in this state. And we cannot let it die in this state. We cannot. This is where it began. It will not end here. And the problem, however, gun control, the push for civilian disarmament is everywhere. And nationally, we see this across other states. I've had people say, well, if things go bad here, I'll move to another state. I tell them, get an apartment because you're going to be moving a lot. If we don't stand up and put an end to it and push back, if we keep ceding ground, then pretty soon you'll be living off a little piece of ice floating off Alaska. We can't do that. So the national organizations obviously play a major role in protecting our rights. And we have representatives from two of the major organizations here that are out protecting us at a national level and also working within the various states as well. So the first one is the National Rifle Association, John Comerford. The National Rifle Association has got new leadership, and they've changed the direction. And this is very good. We're seeing some really good stuff coming out of the new leadership of the National Rifle Association. They're an 800-pound gorilla, and they do a lot of good things besides of lobbying. They also are the #1 trainer of teaching people firearm safety and so forth. So I wanted to let John Comerford come up and talk a little bit about some of the things that's going on with the NRA protecting our rights.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Phil, and all the great folks from VCDL. You guys are doing yeoman's work down here in Richmond. I mean, it's incredible to see the Sea of Patriots down here on this crisp winter day in Richmond, while the folks in that building over there are planning to take away your rights. The key is our voices need to be loud. We already have the patriotism, but they need to hear our voice. Gun owners were asleep at the wheel last election. What can I say? That election is not the reality in Virginia. We had a heck of a win in 2024 with President Trump and having majorities in the House and the Senate. But sometimes those state-level elections, they're out of sight, out of mind. Now it's time to remind them over there exactly how loud we can be. Folks like Delegate Helmer, he's sitting over there right now thinking passing gun legislation is simple as ordering at a fast food restaurant. What do I mean by that? He thinks he can go over to a microphone and order up a band burger. That's not going to happen. The reason they're doing that is not because they think it's the right thing to do. They think they need to please their billionaire big city financiers, their friends at Everytown, their friends at Brady, their friends at Giffords. But let us rest assured, our voice will be heard. They're trying to dilute the congressional delegation here in Virginia and your voice. The time to be heard is at the election this November, when we show them how big of a mistake they just made. Whatever happens, they will hear from us, but if something goes through, our lawyers are ready. They're sitting at their computers right now, working on lawsuits to liberate and restore your freedom in the courts if we have to go through with that. We're involved in over 60 lawsuits nationwide. We're not afraid to sue in state court, in federal court. And what you're seeing here today, NRA working together with our partners in the Second Amendment community, When's the last time you saw that happen? Our true potential hasn't even been realized yet. This body can be unstoppable. So make your voices heard, call, write, darken the door of your lawmakers' offices, and most importantly, tell your friends, family, your friends at the gun shop, your friends at the range, those folks at home who don't think their voice matters. They need to be woken up as well, just like all of you here today. So thank you very much, and I appreciate your engagement.
Thank you. Okay, and Gun Owners of America has been a strong strategic partner of Virginia Citizens Defense League since we formed back in late 1994. Even back in those early days, GOA has been with us side by side. We have a variety of lawsuits that are going on right now. And one of them we won recently on universal background checks. We got that struck down. GOA went in 50-50 with us. By the way, those people that haven't been involved in this, the hunters and others that don't want to get out and get involved in politics, they're going to be really shocked if that permit to purchase bill passes and they find out they're going to miss the hunting season while they wait to be able to buy one gun. So we got a battle, and we need more people to wake up. Anyhow, I want to introduce Chris Stone with Gun Owners of America. He does the state level things. Chris?
Well, good morning, and thank you for being here and making your voices heard loud and clear. You know, when James Madison was originally drafting the Bill of Rights on June 8th, 1789, he wrote, "The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. A well-regulated militia composed of the body of the people trained to arms is the best and most natural defense of a free country." You know, when Madison wrote that, and that eventually became the Second Amendment, he closely mirrored what George Mason wrote for the Virginia Declaration of Rights. We read in Article 1, Section 13. The truth is, our founders knew from the very onset of this nation, building this great place, that ordinary American citizens retain the God-given right to keep and bear arms. And that is the greatest thing for peace and the defense of this country. It is the duty of the state to affirm and defend this God-given right, which belongs to us all. And yet, we can see here now, they are doing the opposite. You know, I've been to Lobby Day many times, surrounded by my fellow Virginians who are armed and exercising their rights. And guess what? We're peaceful. We're freedom-loving patriots who actively seek the safety and protection of our fellow countrymen. Yet our new governor and the radical leftists in the Virginia Assembly want us disarmed. They're actively working to take a peaceful people and subject us to the tyranny of the state, all while they are surrounded by men with guns to keep them safe. What about the irony of that? As we stand here in this gun-free zone, our elected officials are gleefully defying both federal and state laws by introducing numerous gun control bills. But we're not going to surrender, and we're not going to stand idly by. GOA, we're proud to partner with VCDL and every pro-gun patriot to defeat every single word of unconstitutional gun control introduced in that building right over there. And as Phil was alluding to earlier before I came up here, we were proud to partner with VCDL. And just a few months ago, we defeated the unconstitutional and evil universal background check law here in Virginia so that we can now rightfully privately sell and buy firearms without permission from the government. That's worth excitement. Together we defeated that. That took all of us. And we will fight every single piece of gun control that's introduced in 2026. Look, the Supreme Court, we know this here, gathered here, but the Supreme Court has ruled 3 times, Heller, McDonald, and Bruin, the right to keep and bear arms belongs to you as an individual. Man, woman, black, white, doesn't matter. The right of the individual to keep and bear arms is protected under the Second Amendment and incorporated by the 14th. And carrying a firearm in public extends to you to defend yourself just like it does in the privacy of your own home. So why do our elected officials continue disregarding natural law, the Bill of Rights, and the Virginia Constitution? Because we've all said, and Phil said it earlier, because it isn't about safety. It's about control. It isn't about the common good. It is purely about controlling, discouraging, and beating you into submission. It's about forcing lifelong Virginians to flee this state. But I have a word for them. I'm not fleeing. I'm standing here to fight every single word, and I know you all will as well. We have to get all our friends and neighbors to fight every bill that's proposed in the General Assembly this year. We're not giving up. We're not going away. And I can say for myself, I will not comply. I will not comply. Yesterday, when I drove down here to Richmond, I was talking to my 8-year-old daughter and my 11-year-old son. Now, they know what I do for work, and we love shooting together and building firearms. And when I explained what Spanberger and the leftists were doing, my son looked at me and he said this verbatim. I wrote it down. So if I stay in Virginia, I won't be able to own guns. How is that fair? Even children understand the nature of what's happening and how wrong and immoral it is. It's ironic, when you walk into the Capitol building right there off to my right-hand side, there's a statue of Thomas Jefferson which reads, Architect of Liberty. Clearly, our legislators, or most of our legislators, have not read or dwelt on what that really means. They're choosing instead to be architects of tyranny. Jefferson's own personal seal at Monticello reads, rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. So today, we tell our elected officials who serve us, I will not serve tyrants. Not one single word of gun control. We will stand and fight. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your activism. God bless.
I saw a video where Democrat delegate Dan Helmer was saying, "Yeah, you know, I just don't think people need to have an AR-15 for self-defense or to protect their homes." Who is he to tell us what we need? He's a delegate. That's all he is. He's got his personal opinion, but unfortunately, he's using that to hit us over the head by trying to disarm all of us because he doesn't think we need this or need that. It's pretty disgusting. Anyhow, VCDL is blessed by having not one, but 2 firearms attorneys on the board of directors. So I've got legal advice anytime I need it, 24/7, free of charge. And these guys also do a lot to protect citizens that find themselves needing help with the legal system. The first speaker up will be John Pierce. John has been on the board for a while. I've known John for years. He's one heck of a firearm attorney, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about some of the legal stuff going on, and then we'll have one of our other attorneys up after him. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. First, I want to thank all the other speakers that are here today. Each of them brings important things to the fight, and I'm honored and grateful to stand alongside them. But more importantly, I want to thank each and every one of you. Thank you for taking time out of your workday, your family lives, your farms, your jobs, your routines to be here. Many of you, I heard people clapping. They're here from Bedford, from Washington County, from Southwestern Virginia, from the Eastern Shore. You guys dedicated a huge amount of time to be here. You traveled for hours to be here in the cold, and you didn't come because it was convenient. You came because it mattered. That alone says something powerful to those who oppose our rights. That applause is for you, for each and every one of you. You know, here at VCDL, we're a nonpartisan, single-issue organization. We don't care how you vote on taxes, schools, or potholes, unless those taxes are for firearms, which we're facing one of those right now as well. But we care about one thing, the right of law-abiding Virginians to keep and bear arms, full stop. And those rights are for everyone. I see some signs here. Gun rights are workers' rights. Armed minorities are harder to oppress. Gun rights are for everyone, and we support every single law-abiding gun owner in the Commonwealth, no matter who they are. But we are here in a moment where that single issue is under incredible attack, more so than we have seen in years. And how did we get here? Well, part of how we got here is uncomfortable to say, but it needs to be said. Too many of our own people stayed home. Hunters, rural shooters, folks who have always thought that someone else will handle it. You know, if we had had as many pro-gun votes as we have deer stamps, we wouldn't be here today facing these issues. So what does that mean? When you go home, talk to your people. Talk to your friends, your neighbors, the guys at the range, the woman that hunts the ridge behind your property. Tell them to call, tell them to email, tell them to show up. Politicians track those contacts, they count them. Numbers matter and silence is interpreted as consent. I also want to encourage any of you that are not already members of VCDL to join, and ask your people to join as well. Our numbers matter, and we exist for one purpose: to defend your rights. As for why I am speaking here today, that was a big, long intro. I'm here in two capacities today. I am a member of the VCDL board, and in that capacity, I'm here the same way that you are. I'm here as a citizen to talk to our elected representatives and try and get them to back down from these draconian laws that they are proposing. I am here in that capacity because voters and citizens are our first line of defense against those kind of legislations. Legislators can ignore a single email, but they cannot ignore a movement. Every right you enjoy exists today, as Philip said, because people showed up before you. And if these rights exist in a decade, it will be because you showed up here today and made your voices heard. And the second role that I have is as an attorney. And lawyers are not the first line of defense. You heard some of the other gun rights groups talking about teeing things up. And the next speaker, my fellow attorney and friend here on the board, is going to talk more about VCDL's plans in that regard. But lawyers are not the first line of defense. Lawyers are the rear guard. We show up when the first line fails, when they pass things anyway in the face of liberty and in the face of the voice of the citizens. And in that case, if bad bills become bad law, rights are trampled, then we move from the legislative halls to the courts. And the job of attorneys becomes to challenge those laws on constitutional grounds. And again, Gilbert's going to cover that in a lot more detail. Here's one ironic twist I wanted to mention before I get to the end of my speech here. One of the bills that they have proposed here is a bill to create a state cause of action to hold public officials accountable if they violate the laws of citizens. And they're going to turn right around after having voted on that bill and vote to violate the rights of each and every one of us here today. And I find that incredibly ironic that they don't understand what they're doing there. You cannot celebrate accountability while dismantling liberty. You cannot claim to defend civil rights while carving a fundamental right into pieces. We are here to remind them that that is a contradiction and they still have time. And if they do not listen to that, then VCDL, just like GOA and the NRA, stands ready to litigate. Gilbert will talk more about that. Because once a right is treated like a privilege, it rarely finds its way back. And we need to fight that. So thank you again for being here. Thank you for standing in the cold, for walking these halls here today, and for having the hard conversations with legislators, even when you see contempt in the eyes of those who consider us to be substandard citizens. I want you to know that whether you're a first-time attendee or a veteran of a dozen lobby days, you matter. Each and every one of you matter. You matter to VCDL and you matter to Virginia. Thank you.
So one of the platforms that the gun control side ran on was affordability. Would somebody explain to me how a $500 suppressor tax and 11% of tax on ammunition and guns is affordable? I'm sort of mystified. The next speaker is Gilbert Ambler. Gilbert's another one of our attorneys. Both of these guys, I don't know what their IQ is, but it's up there. They really are good, very sharp at all this stuff. So Gilbert's going to fill you in on a little bit more information on the legal side.
I'm impressed to see each and every one of you that took time to come stand in the cold and take time out of your busy weeks and out of your busy lives to be here. So like my fellow speakers, I want to thank you for making that happen and taking the time to do that. When I think about the Second Amendment, I'm always reminded that this is not an amendment that gives us rights. This is an amendment that guarantees a right, a pre-existing right, a God-given right. And I love my country, and I love our Constitution, and I care about all of our constitutional rights, but I view the Second Amendment as the canary in the coal mine. If they try to kill that amendment, if they try to take those rights, those pre-existing rights away from you, that says something about their plans for all of the other rights that you have. That right is guaranteeing all of the other rights in the Constitution. That's why it's so important. That's why we have to fight for that right. And unfortunately, the future looks bleak in the federal courts here in Virginia because we're in the Fourth Circuit, and the Fourth Circuit contains not only Virginia, but it contains Maryland. And if you've paid attention to what has happened in litigation in the Fourth Circuit with Maryland's draconian gun laws, what you'll see is that the Fourth Circuit has never met a gun law that they don't like. So it doesn't look good in federal courts, but I also don't want you to give up hope. And there's hope for two reasons. The first is that the Supreme Court is continuing to take gun cases. The Supreme Court of the United States has 2 gun cases this term, and there's many other important issues that the Supreme Court knows they are eventually going to have to address when it comes to firearms. And my hope is that the Supreme Court will smack down the lower courts that are in outright rebellion over the right. Because think about what the Second Amendment protects. It protects your right to keep arms for what purpose? The Fourth Circuit would tell you that the purpose is self-defense. And perhaps that's part of the purpose. Many of you might be here because you care about the right to self-defense. But the right wasn't guaranteeing your right to self-defense alone. The right guarantees your right to defense against a tyrannical government. Think. Yeah. Philip talked at the beginning about the price tag that the men that signed the Declaration of Independence, the price tag that they were willing to pay. What all of our founders were willing to pay. They understood that the possible penalty was death for engaging in what they did. So when they wanted to protect the right to arms, they wanted to protect the right for all of the future generations that might have to fight against the tyrannical government. And I think it's important to remember when we look at the federal courts that that's not the only way to protect rights. There's 3 ways to protect rights that are commonly talked about. Unfortunately, the ballot box has not done so well for us lately. Perhaps the jury box can do better. And here in Virginia, we have an independent source of protection for the right to bear arms that comes from the state constitution. And my hope is, and my belief is, that state court judges will have the fortitude to do what some of the federal judges have not done. That state court judges will be the safeguard and will be the ones that step in and protect these rights. And so when you see them passing bans and passing bills trying to negotiate away your rights, keep in mind that it will often be the state courts that are willing to step in, as they did in the universal background check case, and actually stop this process. And it is going to be a long road ahead of us here in Virginia. It's going to be a difficult path ahead of us in Virginia, but there is a light at the end of that tunnel, and that light will probably come through state court. Thank you all.
Yes, I don't think we would have been a free country if we hadn't had firearms. You look at the other countries in the world, when tyranny takes over, they don't have anything but rocks to throw at the government. Here in America, we have 100 million gun owners. That's more than 50 times bigger than the biggest army in the world. So that's the reason the Japanese also stayed away from invading America. They knew there was a gun behind every blade of grass. My next speaker is Joe Thomas. Joe has been on talk radio for a while, is a big supporter of the 2A and a lot of other issues. He's had me on his show many times, and he felt he would be an excellent speaker to have out here to talk to you guys today. Thank you. Joe Thomas.
So I work in what you would classically call the First Amendment world, but there is no First Amendment without the Second Amendment. Am I right? There was no talk radio in 1776, 250 years ago. We had people like Thomas Paine. We had the pamphleteers who were sharing their common sense. And you know what the British tried to do? They said, we can't stop them from writing, so we'll tax the paper that they write on. That'll show them. And that's right what these lawyer fellas are ready to fight, which are taxes on the bullets. They've decided that, oh, all right, we can't get the guns, so we'll tax your bullets. As if somehow a gun isn't an armament if it's not loaded. This is how crazy they've become because we keep winning in court. And every time another legislation gets passed, somebody will call my show and say, how do they do this? I said, because they can do it until we fight it in court. And if it wasn't for groups like Phillips and Gun Owners of America and the NRA standing up and being ready to take these cases and write these cases so that when they get to the Supreme Court, when the rocket docket in the Fourth Circuit says, oh, no, and when it gets to the Supreme Court, it is buttoned down and they have no choice but seeing the right and seeing the rights and backing us up. I think there's at least 10,000 people here today, maybe 8. There's 12,000 dead Iranians today. You know what those Iranians wanted to do? Enact change in their government. Do you know why they're dead today? Because they don't have a Second Amendment over there.
All right!
Martin Luther King Jr., on the night before he was assassinated, gave a wonderful speech in which he talked about First Amendment infringements, that China and Russia didn't hold true to them because they weren't part of their foundation over there. But somewhere I read the right of the people to keep and bear arms is the one way to control a tyrannical government. Somewhere I read that your right to privacy is irresolute. Somewhere I read your right to own private property, and all of them are protected by your Second Amendment rights. So you keep supporting the Virginia Citizens Defense League, because what's happening in Iran right now is what will happen if we let our Second Amendment rights slip through our hands. Because humans have been through this before. We have allowed our liberty to slip away through apathy, and then tyranny comes in to supplant the apathy. And then the only way to overthrow the tyranny is what they're doing in Tehran right now. Don't let it happen. The reason we have the Second Amendment is so that we will be the first place in the history of mankind to not fall prey to that cycle. Are we going to allow that cycle to run through the United States? A lot of people have made jokes about how cold it is. I thought about how cold and snowy it was at Valley Forge when George Washington was told by General von Steuben, you don't have to win the war. This is your country. They're the invading army. We just have to keep not losing. That's what we have to do. Every time another governor comes in, every time another General Assembly comes on, we just have to keep not losing. You know why? Because gun rights are workers' rights. You know who said that? Karl Marx said that. I just learned that this morning. In a speech he gave in 1850, he said the workers have to keep their gun rights. in order to fight tyranny. And I'll bet you none of you expected to hear a Karl Marx quote when you got here today. What saves lives? Who protects your gun rights? And we need you to vote. Last point, 26% of Virginia decided who's in those buildings because only 52% of us turned out to vote. They win when they don't have to get the majority of the people. So please, we've got midterm elections coming. We've got constitutional amendments coming in April that might have a big impact on those. You have to turn out and vote. Thank you. God bless America. God bless the Commonwealth of Virginia. And God bless the VCDL.
Yeah, the whole concept of deterrence is what we have. When you got 100 million armed people, it deters tyranny because that's a big army you'd have to go up against, the people that are not going to give up their rights. Just like in Utah, they allow anybody with a concealed carry permit to carry in their schools. You know how many school shootings they've had in Utah? 0. Who would you shoot first? The air conditioner repairman might have a gun. The teacher, the visiting parent. That's a deterrent. And they haven't had to use that Second Amendment there to protect their schools because of deterrence. And that's why we can't give that up either. Otherwise, government will turn tyrannical. I think we've already seen the leanings there and what people would want to do. My next speaker is an executive member who comes here. He lived in Virginia Beach for quite a while, and then he moved out to Idaho. But he made a promise to come here every lobby day and help me in any way that I need help. And that's Brendan Mooney. He was very active with helping our gun show stuff down in Tidewater. So I'm going to let Brendan come up and speak to you a little bit all the way from warm Idaho.
Well, good morning. Hey, I have a couple awkward questions to ask. Let me open it up with this. How many of you guys out here in the audience have 3D printers? Oh, good. Okay, just asking randomly. Okay, just promise, just a random thing. There might be a website you guys look at. Maybe you'll learn about some guns and other things about that. Oh, I mean, household appliances. Another question for you. They're going to ask us to give up our guns. Who here is going to do it? No? Hey, anyone willing to give up their guns? I'm just asking. Anyone in the back? I don't see any hands. And that's right. We need to tell them out there that no, we're not going to give up our guns. Absolutely not. When I fly in here, I don't come here unarmed. I fly in and I make sure I always have a means of weapons to protect myself. And I'm not going to stop. Okay? I want to open it up with this quote from Nick Freitas. And sadly, this, I look up to him. Nick Freitas, he's been on this stage. I've met him several times, right? He's a great patriot, but let me paraphrase and quote him here. It's not a civil dispute anymore amongst fellow countrymen. It is a war of ideas between diametrically opposed worldviews which cannot coexist with one another. One side will win and one side will lose. And I can tell you which side will lose. Our ideas are rooted in our God-given rights from the Second Amendment, okay? Absolutely. And I want to encourage every single person here to get involved, okay? I will say that after Charlie Kirk was murdered, I was a little apprehensive about coming up here. But I'll tell you what, I'm glad I am. And there's no person, no man that will make me quiet for my God-given right of self-defense. Am I right? Am I right? Exactly. We all need to have a voice. We all need to sit down and go, where is our line in the sand? I see a lot of patriots out here that are walking around and doing great stuff by showing up for lobby day. I want all of you to come up here and start volunteering more, get more involved. Say that I am the thin red line that I will not be crossed, okay? I'll say someone that I look up to, he was a pretty good orator, maybe had a few wise words. I think Jesus Christ said it best in Luke 22:36. Sell your cloak and buy a sword. Well, I've actually asked that question myself. What gun would Jesus carry? It's not going to be an AR-15. You're wrong. It's an FAL. It's a right arm of freedom. But honestly, for those who are believers, I want you to sit down and think about that from a biblical standpoint of where are we going to sit down and say, hey, this is it, this is not right. We're called to civilly disobey, and I want everyone on their conscience to talk about and think about amongst your dinner table and say, where is my line? What am I going to do? So another thing I want you to think about, everyone here who shows up, take their time, there's a lot of offices in your county that are probably unfilled or filled with people that got there because they showed up. I want you guys to look at yourselves and say, hey, I can be a county commissioner. I can be a delegate. Well, those are pretty high, lofty goals. What about school board? Who here thinks school boards and guns aren't important? I would say, run for school board. Hey, I'm on the planning commission for my little county in Idaho. Well, guess what? Those are gun rights as well, because property rights are gun rights as well. Those are the kind of things I want people to get involved in, the small little offices that are like, I don't need to be involved in that. Get involved. Do you want someone who has leftist ideology to be in there? I don't. I want you guys in here. Now, the other thing is, when we go and talk to people about guns and our gun rights, I want you guys to lead with love. And I mean that genuinely. We can be firm, but don't be mean. Don't go out there and start yelling and screaming and have vitriol. It is not the time for that. I want everyone here who came here to lead with love and compassion and caring, but to be firm. Do not waver, and you can have both in one area. I want you to find community. Look around. You have a lot of friends. We can't do this alone. Do not be, as some of my friends out in Idaho, I'm going to run into the hills, build my bunker, and leave, and I'll just wait till the revolt comes. Yeah, you'll be alone in that bunker. I'm going to be out there with making community. I'm going to be building friendships, lifting others up. The people behind me, this is my family. I'm not going to leave them behind, go hide. We got to stand up together. And the big thing also, and this is the awkward one, it takes money. I want everyone to sit down and look at each other and say, you know what? God provided me some time, talent, and treasures. I flew here on my own dime. I flew here on my own time. I'm away from my son and away from my wife. My son owns 3 guns. He's only 2. I'm starting him off a little right. And thank you, Pat, for the AR-15 lower with literally with his name on it. Gave it to him for his first birthday. But I want you guys to look. I don't like asking for money ever for myself, and I'm not a politician like that anyways. But I want you guys to look at yourselves and go, is this an organization I can put my money where my mouth is? It takes money for these lawsuits. Yes, they are doing it, but it takes money. It takes time. Donate to the PAC. Last year, I did my first big donation to the PAC, and I'm very proud of that because it takes time. It is not a hopeless cause. If you say it's a hopeless cause, the exit's right over there. This is not a hopeless cause. And I want to say thank you for everyone here. God bless you all. God bless America.
The next speaker is a congressman who was a delegate and was a senator here in the state of Virginia and went on to be a congressman. He is somebody that from the first day he got in, and the first VCDL rally was there and was very gung-ho and wanted to address the crowd. I remember that well. I want to introduce John McGuire, Congressman McGuire.
All right, my voice is a little bit weak today. Can you guys hear me? Hey, let's get a round of applause for Phil Van Cleven, VCDL. Nobody works harder in Virginia to protect your God-given right to protect yourself, your family, and your children. You know, when I was in the House of Delegates, we had a Democrat Speaker of the House, and I said, Madam Speaker, if a bad guy broke into your home tonight to kill you and your children, you would be glad you had a gun. And if a bad guy broke into your home tonight to kill you and your children and you didn't have a gun, you'd wish you had a gun. It is our God-given right. It's enshrined in our Constitution, and your voice matters. What I would ask all of you is we need your prayers. We need you to vote. I spoke at 13 pro-gun rallies, and I always say, raise your hand if you've never voted before. And I always see a bunch of people that have never voted before. Those days are over. We need all hands on deck. We've got the midterms coming up. I need 10 people to get 10 people to get 10 people to vote. We need your prayers. We need your dollars. We need you out there knocking on the door. Now, thank God we got President Donald J. Trump in the White House. Can you imagine what would happen to our gun rights if Kamala Harris was in the White House? And you probably noticed for the first time since the 1920s, we removed excise taxes on short barrel rifles and suppressors. That's our best victory for the Second Amendment since the 1920s. That's worthy of a round of applause, I would say. But your voice matters. You know, when I was in the House of Delegates during an endorsement, Philip Van Cleve said I had some of the most hard-hitting pro-gun legislation in Virginia. We've all heard constitutional carry. Well, another one is sovereign immunity. And what it says is if you get shot in a gun-free zone, you can sue the government. Because we know and by the way, I got letters from all 50 states saying that's the best pro-gun legislation they've ever heard of, because we know there is no such thing as a gun-free zone, and it's our God-given right to protect ourselves. I'm continuing that fight in Congress. I could use your prayers. We've got this crazy redistricting vote coming up, and we need to get everybody to defeat that. The voters should decide who represents them, not radical leftist Democrats. So please vote, send your prayers, send your dollars. God bless you. God bless the VCDL, and God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. Appreciate that. The next speaker is one of VCDL's powerhouses, our Secretary-Treasurer, Pat Webb. I don't know how she does everything she does. It's amazing. And she's had an operation on her neck and everything else, and had a foot operation, and yet doesn't slow her down at all. It's amazing. I need to figure out how to tap into that. But Pat's going to come up and talk to you a little bit. Pat?
Hello, Virginians. I hope y'all can hear me all right. I want to thank you for coming out and being proactive about defending our rights. And I want to talk to you a little bit about how we got here today. Coming over to the General Assembly this morning, we took the tunnel through the Capitol, and I noticed along the way in the lobby there was a sculpture that was labeled The Process of Democracy. And my comment to my friends that I was walking with was apparently somebody failed civics, because we do not live in a democracy. Democracy is mob rule. We live in a republic if we can keep it. So how do we keep it? We've been told by our founders, and the reason that our government is structured the way it is, not one central government, but we have federal, then we have states, and then we have local governments, because you have the most control at the local level. And like Brandon was talking about, we need to be a part of our government at the local level, at the state level, and even at the federal level. We need to stay engaged. If we fall asleep at the wheel, like a lot of us have been for the last several years, then this is what happens. We find ourselves faced with a major threat to our freedom. And make no mistake, the Second Amendment was not about hunting. It was not even really about defending yourself, although that is part of it. It was about defending the freedom that we had just won from an oppressive government. And that battle was entirely fought with guns that were owned by private individuals or businesses. And when you have a government that is wanting to take away those tools of freedom, and especially when that government is proposing bills that says, you can't have them, but we can, we need to wake up and we need to take action and we need to say, oh, no, you don't. So moving forward, you will see from VCDL notices when bills hit committees. There are a number of ways that you can be proactive during this session. The first and the most preferable is to show up at committee meetings. Now, we realize that not everybody is close enough to Richmond to do that, or people have to work. The second best way is to sign up to testify virtually. And you can play the committee hearing on your computer and watch for the bill numbers to come up, and then unmute. And you have to have a camera, you have to have a microphone, and you can testify virtually. And people tell me all the time, oh, I'm not very good at public speaking. You don't have to be. All you have to do is say, I agree with what VCDL said. I agree with what Philip Van Cleve said. I agree with what Pat Webb said. I started lobbying with Philip in 2020, and he said, isn't this going to hurt your business? Because I have a little bitty gun store and I'm the only one there. And I said, Philip, if these bills go through, I won't have a gun store to worry about. So I got my lobbyist credentials and I have been lobbying with Philip since 2020. I don't expect everybody to make that. I don't expect everybody to make that sacrifice, but I do expect everybody to participate in one way or another. The third way that you can participate at your state level, every one of those bills is online, and you can post public comment. Those public comments go to everybody on that committee, and they are there for everybody to read. Yes, your name is there, open to the public. But we cannot be the silent majority any longer. If we do, our freedom and the freedom of future generations is lost. We must be loud, we must be proud, and we must be ever vigilant, because people that would squash our rights will never give up, and neither can we. So I want to thank you all for being here. I know everybody has made some sort of sacrifice to be here today. And I appreciate it. We all appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you virtually testify or join us in committee meetings. And we will prevail. It will take time, but we will prevail. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I also want to thank the team leaders that showed up early this morning and their teams that have going around the General Assembly, delivering all of the VCDL firearm analysis documents and all of that, and speaking to legislators. So that's those teams have done an important thing for us this morning. The gun control crowd didn't want everything to get out so early. The assault weapon ban, I think they meant for that to be held back so that people wouldn't be riled up. This is what they didn't want. They're holding back on several key bills, and they admitted they were doing it until maybe today or tomorrow they'll come in once this is over. The permit to purchase is a disaster.